All right, good morning. We're working on Gem Wars. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to add in a drawing system and purchasable items. So like as you collect gems, you can use those to purchase different pieces onto the bottom. And we're going to implement that today. So let me show where the game is at currently. I've added these indicators that show the percentages of different things, the block colors, and also the gems themselves. You can see here I was testing a canvas to see how I want these purchase items to look. So let me go ahead and dump that for a second. Okay, it's saying now that the script which is invoking that that drawer needs to get fixed. Is that what it is? Let me look at the UI script. Draw container script. Back in the game. Did it just go into an indefinite loop, or am I going to regain control here? There we go. And now we can see that things are working correctly. Now, my current round has the board size set to 8-8, then 10-10, 12-12, and then we jump up to 14-14, and then 16-16. Hey, Melton Dev, welcome back. So these are dynamically scaled now, the board size is. One thing that I changed here is in my prefab manager, I want to get rid of these. So we just want to go down to 5 elements, 4 elements. And then in my drawer container, I wanted to have my, and we're going to change this later, but for now, this is what I want. Here, instead of taking this from the pool, I want to do a public piece script called pieces prefab, piece prefabs. And now what I want to do is do a selected piece equals your piece prefabs. So we want to do a random.range from my 0 to my prefabs.length. And then I want to do that of my piece prefabs and select one of these. And then I want to say my var piece is a instantiate, and we want to instantiate my selected piece with a transform parent of my drawer dot render texture camera dot transform. Now it should run a lot better. Now my pool manager should only be managing the and then we'll move in these prefabs here. Okay, that increased the speed significantly because our prefab manager only has a few pieces in it now. One thing I want to change is on my game manager, when we start my effects pool, we want to do that for 10. And we can just say public integer. Well, we can do that somewhere else here, which is on my pool manager. When we set the effects pool, I can get this from my prefab manager. We can have a public integer number prefabs to create on start. We'll put that to be 10. And this is prefab manager dot number like that. Okay. Now, the bigger reason that we're having the performance hit is because of the way the camera, see how we don't know where these snap because we don't see the grid? So you can still see we have a little bit of a performance hit, and the reason that's happening is because of my scripts here. So here we're looking at my screen height and width and then setting it and then looking at the size of the board. So this only changes if my camera main, if my screen size changes. So we want to have a protected vector2 here called screen size. And we're going to do screen size equals new vector2 of my screen dot width and my screen dot height. And then you're going to set the orthographic size. So in update, we're going to say and my screen size does not equal to null, and my screen size dot x does not equal my screen dot width, or my screen size dot y does not equal my screen dot height. So if my game is not null, my screen size is not null, and then my screen size of x and y, if one of those is not correct, then we're going to set the screen size. That should help significantly, except for we have one other script. Which is really the performance hog. So that is called my camera drawer script. And this is determining the orthographic size of the camera here. And all you're doing is setting it when you need to on update. So that actually looks okay. So if I look at my drawer container here, when we run it, my orthographic size on this camera, 0.53, and as I resize the screen, it does change that appropriately. So that's fine. Okay, so let's add some lines to the grid. The first thing I wanted to do was, if I look at my border, which is a prefab called boundary, we just have it stretched out in one direction here. And on its initial placement, here, I want to say that the top's Y position should be that minus 0.5 F. And this one's plus 0.5 F. And on the left side, we want to add 0.5 F. And on the right side, I want to do a minus 0.5 F. Let's see what that does. Well, it definitely helps with our size of the grid issue. And so now the length of these things are going to be minus 1. No, but that's for the, yeah, that's for the scale. And the bottom is going to be minus 1. And the left is going to be just a second. We'll do it all off that. Let's try that again. I wonder what's going on with my microphone cables. They're starting to screw up. There. Now we can see that everything is lined up correctly. And I've gotten rid of that gap, which is great because people really didn't like that gap. So now what I can do is we're going to take one of these blocks here. This purple one. And I'm going to call this a block border. Open this up in Photoshop. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I first want to change this thing to be a I want to do a smart select. And I want to add a stroke onto this. So let's do this actually in Illustrator. And we're going to look at this block here. This one's fine. And I'm going to copy this, make a new layer, add it to it, dump it over here, add a artboard for it. And then we want to make the no fill, but with a stroke that's a shade of yellow. And a bigger stroke. It's probably a little thick, so let me turn that down to be like 20. And now we're going to export that as artboard 23. And I'm going to call this the outlined block. And then you can open it up in Photoshop. Did it not open? I'm so confused. There we go. And we can trim it. And then we can resize this as a 72 and then 500 by 500 and save it. And now in the game we can import that new graphic. And call it block outline. And we want to say the pixels per unit on this is looks like everything else was 600. just do one more export. That's okay, actually. I'm just going to set this to be 500 because it's a little different size. Bilinear. We'll have it as a no quality and apply it. Okay. So on the grid itself, I want to have a new on my piece. I want to have a new public sprite here called my piece outline sprite. I don't want that there because I want it to be managed. So I want it on the board. And we're going to make a new type here, like that. Okay. And that's all I want this to be, and the correct material, which is sprite material. So on my board, when you're dragging this piece around here, here you're getting the position. And setting it. To where the screen point is. But what you really want to do is right here. And you have a reference here to the board, so we can go to the board script and we can say set outline, and we're going to pass in this shape. So in here, I'm going to have a new function called public virtual void set outline, which is going to pass in a piece script and a piece. And what I want to do here is I want to have a public sprite renderer for my block outline prefab. we're just going to call it block outline for now. And I'm just going to have 4 of these. So for each var item in piece dot blocks, which is a block script, so they're all going to have a position. I want to do a in my base mono behavior, I have a round vector 3 same z of my item dot transform dot position, and I want to do that for I goes to my piece dot blocks dot length. And then I want to put that as a block outline prefab dot transform dot game object of I dot transform dot position is equal to that. Okay, let's see what happens here. So on the board now, it wants me to add the block outline prefabs. And this is only temporary. So we're just going to add 4 of these and offset them. Interesting. That's going to need a little bit more editing. And then 4 or 3 or whatever. So now when I run it, my block outline prefab I never said it. And now you can see that we at least can see where this piece is going to go. Usually I'm pretty okay with that because now you can see. Okay, so I'm okay with that. So one thing about the board, when we add a piece to the board, I want to set the position of it, and then I want to say block.transform.parent.setParent to be this transform. And then I want to destroy my piece. There it is. It didn't destroy the piece. Which is what I wanted it to do. Try that again. There, now it's getting rid of it. So yes, it's here, and then boom, everything gets set. Okay, so that's good. So in the board, I'm going to change this now to be just one block outline prefab. And so when I init this, I want to have 4 of these things called block outlines. And then I want to do a var block outlines here equals a new list of sprite renderer. And then I want to go for 4 blocks. I want to make a new, so we're going to instantiate a block outline prefab and set the transform parent to be this one. Like that. And then you want to do this equals block outlines dot to array. The reason I'm doing this is I want my block outline dot set dot game object dot set active to be false. So down here, for each one of the pieces in there, I want to take my block outlines and set the transform position. And now I want to say if my block outlines of I is not active, then you want to set it to be active. When you add this to the board, I want to do a for each var block outline in block outlines, I want to do a block outline dot game object dot set active to be false. Okay. So back here we should be able to just have my prefab now. Now, the other thing is I only want those things to appear when we're over the board. So if my we want to first, before we do this, we want to do a for I goes to my piece.blocks.length. Like this. And now if my position, and we want to say is in board boundaries of my position. So if it's not in board boundaries, we want to have a var is on board equals false or equals true. Is on board equals false, and we want to break. So if it is not on the board, Then you want to set all of these things to be inactive. Otherwise, if it is on the board, you want to iterate again through all of them, set the position, and then set them active. Down here, when I'm moving around my piece, and you're setting the outline to is dragging, I want to say that my board script.set outline to be this, and when you stop dragging, and you do your add piece to the board, that should get rid of it. Right here. So let's check it again. There we go. Now, we also only want the boundary to appear if it's a valid position on the grid. So back here on board, if it's in the board boundaries and or if my grid of my integer of position.x and integer position.y is not equal to null, is out. We're going to rename this is outline should set outline. Now it will only show valid moves. Perfect. Okay. Let's go ahead and jump into source tree, and we're going to say added outline when placing pieces and moved blocks to be parented by the board instead of a piece, which is now destroyed. Good morning, Johnny5. How are you doing? I'm good, says Johnny5. All right, so Johnny, let me show you what we just completed. It's Friday. Here you can see that we now have this outline, which will help guide us with where we want to place the pieces, and it will only show valid moves. Man, you can make some progress on a game in a week. Thanks, man. It's getting there. Single player should be just about done. If you haven't, you can play this up at the website, pixelhorrorstudios.com. Interesting. So when it drew the new board, it didn't get rid of those. So on board script, when we set the piece, piece placed event, which should be in Game Manager. You're initting a new board script. So here we can say if block outlines dot length is equal to 0, then you want to create them. Otherwise, you just want to set them. And all you're going to do is set your block outline here, that game object, to not be active. Man, your website's looking sweet too. Thanks. Yeah, I'm using it as my portfolio. Couple of little bugs still I have to fix on the e-commerce app. So if block outlines does not equal to null and the length is or is equal to null or the length is 0. Looks good. Now when we go to the next site, the next page, you can see that it goes away and we're good to go, and it's not regenerating them each time. It's just reassigning the values. Boom, looks good. You can see the percentages up here, but we don't have the counts of what it is that we're grabbing. So I'm going to take a short break. We're at a good break point. I'm going to get some water. We'll be back in like 15 minutes, and then we're going to implement the drawing. So what that means is we have to, on our player object, start calculating which gems are acquired and have those appear on screen. And then we're going to have another menu which will have purchasable items. And I think that the purchasable items will reset on the round. I'm not sure yet. And when you purchase an item, it will then go into your drawer. So thanks for staying with me. Enjoy the music. I'll see you guys in just like 15 minutes.